Good evening, Demon fans, and welcome back to the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and in a moment we'll be joined by former Melbourne Football Club club champion Stephen Stretch, who is also the father of current-day player Billy Stretch. And after that, Great Viney and I will be dissecting the disappointing loss to the Eagles in Alice Springs, and we'll be taking your calls too. But first, Stephen Stretch.
Beautiful tap on. That's excellent play to Stephen Stretch. He runs to half forward and kicks long. A beautiful long kick. Goal! What a great goal to Stretch.
Browning takes the ball. A shocking kick straight into the arms of Stephen Stretch, who's been a fine player on the wing.
He's been a wonderful acquisition, Stephen Stretch, to the Melbourne side in the last couple of seasons.
He'll get a lot of votes in the Brownlow too.
He is a top player, Stretch, as he kicks from the 55-metre mark. It's close. I think it was touched through. A very, very good drop punt, though, that by Stretch. It's forced through from behind.
Scholes, who's played an excellent game. Spalding takes it on to Stretch. He bursts through the centre and puts a lovely kick down to the forward area. Touched out the hands. Williams comes through, the hand pass to Bays. His kick, a high, floating one towards the centre, and Stretch, a beautiful mark.
Well, that was just sheer ability and class, took that mark. Tremendous. Oh, this is bad play by the Sydney Swans, because Stephen Stretch is a magnificent kick of a football, and that 15 metres now takes him right onto the 50-metre line. He will kick this drop punt from 16 kicks he's had. And as I said, he is a great kick. There's the drop punt, a low trajectory drop punt, goal.
Lovely goal by Stephen Stretch with the aid of a 15-metre penalty. Stretch put his second goal on the board, and he's controlled that wing right throughout the game.
There's Cow. A magnificent hand pass to Stretch. Stretch will kick this. Here's a very long kick from 45 metres. Stephen Stretch says, "Thank you very much. I'll have a goal."
Our guest tonight played 164 games in the red and blue and booted 71 goals. He loved to run down the wing, could fly high for a screamer, and was known to sink a long goal or two on the run. He was a club champion in just his second season, playing an integral part in Melbourne finally breaking its 23-year finals drought. He played state footy for South Australia and also happens to be the father of a modern-day Demon. Welcome to the Demonland podcast, Stephen Stretch.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be on.
Not a problem. Stephen, when you came over to the Demons in 1986, you had already had a few seasons under your belt in the SANFL, effectively making you what we call today a mature age recruit. How did you find that transition from the SANFL to the VFL, and was it made easier by your experience over in SA?
I think it was, Andy. Yeah, looking back at it now, it's I was fortunate to play 3 or 4 years in the SANFL over here in Adelaide. So you're right, the transition was made a little bit easier, and I think at the time, having 50 or 60 games under my belt really helped. So the transition was made a lot easier because of that, and I think in that first season, which John Northey was at the helm, he was backed me in and played me most weeks. I think I might have got spent a week in the seconds, but he gave me a lot of game time, and that I was 22 at the time. So as you said, it was almost like a mature age rookie, and I found it. It's never easy, I guess, at any particular stage, but it was welcomed very well by the club and the players and everyone at the club, and the transition was quite smooth. I wouldn't say seamless, but quite smooth.
Your second year in the VFL saw you achieve some incredible milestones, both personal and at the team level. The Dees broke a 23-year finals drought and almost made the granny. And you took out the Keith Bluey Truscott Trophy for club champion.
Yeah.
Obviously a very special season on all fronts.
Oh, absolutely, Jace. It was one that I sort of had to pinch myself at the end of the year. I guess you don't get involved in this sort of sport and this sort of religion that we play to win those individual accolades, but to certainly win the best and fairest. And I don't think I missed a game in that season. So I was very lucky, but more to the point, we entered the finals, as you said, for the first time in 23 or 24 years. So it was an exceptionally long season. You know, the 20 rounds we had, or 18 rounds we had, plus finals. We had night games at the start of the year. It was a very long season, but very, very rewarding. And it was great to see the Melbourne faithful. Not that I had a lot of knowledge about Melbourne at that stage. It was only my second year, but to see the success over that year and what eventuated at the end of the year was just fantastic for the club. And I guess we're all trying to repeat that now, aren't we? We'd love to see the boys get back to that sort of level, but certainly days that I'll never forget, and not just 1987, but the years after that too were very good.
Yep.
We spoke with Balls Gwinter a few weeks ago and got his perspective of the 87 preliminary final. What are your memories of that fateful day?
I remember a couple of things on that particular day. I don't think I'd ever played at Waverley where they had 78,000 supporters out there. It was an amazing day, and as Rodney Grinter said, the wind changed 2 or 3 times during that game, and everything was falling our way, and it had for the first 3 quarters. So, and then it all fell over like a house of cards in that last quarter. It was, it was the longest 4 or 5 minutes of the game. It's felt like it with, missed goals, missed opportunities, and that last 45 seconds of the play where poor old Jimmy ran across the mark and Buchanara had the eventual goal. And I think I was actually standing in the goal square at the time when the ball went through. So it made it even worse. So it was an amazing day, and probably I think, and you guys would be able to reflect on this, it's probably one of the most amazing prelim finals of all time. So we were just on the wrong side of the ledger, unfortunately.
The margin in the following year's grand final was considerably greater. Did you rate us any chance going into that game against Hawthorn, or were they too good in 88 and would have demolished anyone that came in front of them?
Yeah, I think that is the case. I don't have a lot of great memories from that particular game for a number of reasons, but they were a powerhouse in the late 80s, the Hawthorn sides. We were on a crest of a wave coming through the 88 series and the latter part of that season, but we just struck one of the all-time great teams, and I think to this day Hawthorn are still regarded, well, the Hawthorn team of the late 80s is regarded as one of the greatest teams of all time. So we respected them. We hated them, obviously, because they towed us up a few times, but we respected them, and I don't think any team would have got near them on that day.
Yep.
You played with some of the greats of the Melbourne Football Club throughout your career: Robbie Flower, Jimmy Steins, Garry Lyon, Alan Jakovich. Can you tell us a bit about some of those players and who was the best of that talented bunch?
Well, that's a pretty easy question. I think Jimmy Steins, for me, is probably one of the greatest players I've seen. I think he revolutionised the ruckman and the landscape for ruckman from that point onwards. He was he was very durable, which is one of the greatest attributes he had. But in saying that, he was skillful, lots of courage, and as I said, for a big man, he had fantastic endurance. And he was probably, if you had to ask me, the greatest player at Melbourne that I've ever seen, it would certainly be Jimmy Steins, and probably Sean White and Robbie Flower would be a close second. Having played a lot of footy with all those players, I think Sean White, with his natural athletic ability, was able to do anything. You could probably play him anywhere. You could play him in the ruck if you really had to. Chulip, for obvious reasons, taught me a lot in my first year or two at Melbourne about running patterns and how to play the wing. And then you got guys like Alan Johnson, who filled that role on the wing at many, many times, but also held down a back pocket there later in the latter part of his career. So for me, those 3 or 4 blokes stick out, and again, very fortunate to play a lot of footy with those blokes, and I learned a hell of a lot from them.
It must be hard to believe that, 3 of those that you mentioned, Jimmy, Robbie and Sean, no longer with us. some of your closest teammates, I suppose. Yep.
Very, very difficult. I remember Robbie's funeral clearly because it was Billy's first official function as a player of the Melbourne Footy Club. He got drafted as a father-son, which a number of years ago was 5 or 6 weeks before the actual national draft. So he took up position in Melbourne, and that was one of the first functions. And so in one sense, I was elated and very happy that he was, landed at a club that he actually loves. But very, very sad that Melbourne had lost one of their favourite sons in Robbie. So very, very sad day. But again, it makes it all more enjoyable that I had the opportunity not only to meet him and become a good friend, but also play alongside him.
Yep. You were coached for most of your career by John Northey, who moulded a young team into a group that could take it up to the likes of Carlton and Hawthorn of that era. What are your memories of Swooper as a coach? Very much still a cult figure among us supporters.
Yeah, look, I love Swoop. I still stay in touch with him to this day, even if it's only just a few emails. But he welcomed me with open arms when I first got to the club. He had this uncanny ability to get the best out of his players and get his players up for not just the big games, but any game. He had a great ability to communicate on all different levels to different players, and he always found the right time to be able, to be critical and aggressive and in his presence at the club. So I loved him. But I played a lot of games, so I think if you perhaps ask players that were on the cusp and weren't getting game, they may not have liked him as much. But I just think he was able to extract the best ability out of all the players that he coached. And I think if you ask many players who played under him, I think he would certainly be right up there with coaches that have influenced many players' careers, and that's certainly the case with me.
You were lucky enough to play in an era where we still had state representative football playing for South Australia. How much of an honour was that call up, and do you think the AFL should bring that back at some stage?
Yeah, it was a very big honour. People often say to me, which are the best games or the greatest games you've played in, and apart from that 87 series, the final series, the state games I hold very close to my heart. I only played 4 or 5, I think it was, and they were big games. The games against Victoria at Footy Park and a couple over at the MCG we played absolutely stick in my memory to this day. And it would be fantastic if they could reinvent the state footy and get everyone's involvement and inclusion back into it. A lot easier said than done, I think. Yeah. But I'm not sure what the formula is to do that. But it's very hard these days. The players are getting paid a lot more money. They've got their own responsibilities. With training and playing with their own clubs. I'm not sure I've got the answer for you guys, but I'd love to see it come back. And I think most people who came through the 80s or 70s, 80s and 90s would love to see that football come back again. It was hard, intense, a great rivalry which has been seen to be successful for many, many years. So, it would be nice.
Yep. You spoke just before about Billy coming to Melbourne under the father-son rule. There's actually a nomination by Adelaide, which was matched by the Dees. Obviously, you would have been happy for him to be on any AFL list, but how important was it for you and for him that he ended up in red and blue?
Oh, look, I think it was very important, not just for his football ability. I mean, the easy decision would have been for him or Melbourne not to match the Adelaide Crows pick and for him to stay in Adelaide and be comfortable over here. I think more from a development perspective, I think it was a fantastic move for him. Admittedly, he'd only been out of school for a week or two at that stage, but since he could walk and hold a footy and kick a footy, we were taking him to the Melbourne games when we lived in Melbourne, and he was hooked. So, for a young kid, these days, just to get the opportunity to play is a great honour. But to play for a club that his dad played a few games at, and for a club that he supported all through his junior years, I think it was amazing. And we've got a lot to thank the Melbourne Football Club for picking him up. I mean, obviously he deserved his position, and at the time, and we were over the moon that he got the opportunity to move to Melbourne and play for the mighty Dees.
I believe Billy kicked a goal with his first kick in AFL footy. Can you describe your emotions of the day, and in particular with that goal?
Yeah, it was a big day. Obviously, we had a phone call from the footy club that he was, I think, on the Tuesday or the Wednesday he was going to play. So we had time to get some close friends and family over there. So there would have been 15 or 20 of us, and we were sitting up at the first level at the punt road end. And yeah, it was a little bit of a blur because we were just happy that he was out there playing. We couldn't really believe it, to be honest. And he came off the bench, and I think Jeremy Howell got the footy, and Billy had cut inside, and he was playing on the wing, and Jeremy hit him up, and he was about 35, 40 metres out, and all of a sudden 20 of us just stood up in our seats, and we struggled to see right over the other side of the ground, but we actually were able to see it on the big screen, and it was just an amazing feeling. So I actually wanted him to stay out on the ground, but as they do these days, they kick a goal and they're off in a heartbeat.
I don't get that.
Yeah, amazing experience, and certainly a highlight of any kid's career when they kick a goal with their first kick. So yeah, needless to say, we went out and had a few drinks and celebrated that night.
Absolutely. I think on Demonland we've been following Billy's career almost since birth. I think the first thread started about him when he was about 13 or 14 and looking extremely youthful. Can you just enlighten us a bit what it's like to be the parent of a player these days? It's obviously very different to when you were running around, given the 24-hour media scrutiny, social media pressure. It must be a real roller coaster of emotions for you, right in the highs and lows.
Absolutely, it is. It's. I think I might have mentioned to you before. It's. If I had a choice, I'd prefer to be a player and not to be a parent. It's very difficult. I think, especially when you're, dealing with a player who's perhaps between that number 22 and 30 on the list. He's in and out a little bit, and he's not a regular every week. He's had a couple of injuries. The first couple of years were really, really enjoyable. I think under Roos he played quite a lot of footy in the first couple of years, and then things changed. Goody came, and there's some new recruits and a different game plan, and it is a real roller coaster. I think if he's a regular player, then we would be able to go to the footy and enjoy it and sit down and relax and have a social life as well. But when they're not playing on a regular basis, it's a real roller coaster. And I think for us as parents, all we can really do is support the kids. I'm probably more like a sounding board for Bill. If he's got any issues, then I'm there to help him or answer any questions. I'm certainly not in his face and talking to him every day about what he should and what he shouldn't be doing. That's not my responsibility. So I can only, encourage him and advise him what I think if he asks any questions. We get over to Melbourne a fair bit. But again, we're still very, very appreciative and that he's been able to play as many games as he has, and we just hope at this point that that can continue, because he loves the club, he loves the people at the club, he loves the coaches, and he loves that AFL environment. He was born to do it, and I think we would love to see that continue.
By all accounts, he's very professional in his preparation and leaves no stone unturned on that front. So, yep.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's Simon Goodman said on a number of occasions, he's certainly, leading the way as far as his attitude goes, and he sets high standards, all that sort of stuff, and I think he's very well regarded by the other players, and that's what you want. Not everyone's going to be able to play every game every week, but if you're doing all the right things, on and off the club, on and away from the club, it holds you in good stead, not just in the footy, but in life in general. And I think he'll be able to sit back at the end of his career, whether it's this year, next year, or 10 years' time, and he'll be able to say that he's done everything he possibly can to get the best out of himself. And I think that's the most important thing.
Where do you feel Billy's best position is?
That's a hard question. I personally, when he was growing up and playing junior footy, I had a little bit to do with coaching him, and he's always been an inside midfield player. And it wasn't until he actually went to Melbourne that he actually had to change his game to become a wingman, because he was never going to get an inside role at Melbourne. So, it took him a year or two to find his feet. He had to change his running patterns, had to work on his fitness a little bit. So if you're asking me now where do I think his best position is, I think he's just a natural inside midfield distributor type player, if that's the right word. He is a good wingman. I think the wing is probably one of the hardest positions on the ground to play. You're never idle. You're up and down the whole time. You've got accountability back. You've got to push forward and attack as well. So I think it's a tough position. But if I had to pick, I would say certainly an inside mid. And I think there's probably a spot for him on a half-back flank somewhere as well. Again, I think he's very, very accountable, and most of the time he uses the ball okay. So who knows? Anywhere at the moment, I think.
You made reference to injuries. He's been very unlucky. Have come as he's sort of hitting good form. That must be frustrating for him and for you. How's he progressing with his current rehab?
It's pretty good, actually. He had a rod inserted in his foot because he had a crack in his fifth metatarsal last year after the game up in against Fremantle up north. And so he had a rod put in that. And that's just the rod, the end of the rod's just become a little bit irritable in the last couple of months. So there's no crack or any major issues there. It's just I think they call it very low grade stress. So it's just a little bit painful. So they've reduced the load the last 4 or 5 weeks, and I think he's running about 10 or 11 Ks at training at the moment. So we're hoping that if not this week, certainly the week after, he'll be back. So if he can get back and play his last 3 or 4 games for Casey, well, I think that's a little tick in his box, and because it is frustrating, especially mid-season when you're not playing. And there's other players going through it as well. But I think it's a little goal that he's got, is to get himself back and play those last few games. But his injury itself is pretty good at the moment. Yeah, it's probably as good as it's been in the last couple of months. So he's not far away.
Fantastic to hear. You're based in Adelaide these days. How often do you get to come over and see Billy and watch the games live? Yeah,
well, we try and get over there once a month. We both my wife and I work in real estate, so sometimes it's a little bit difficult. We've been in it for about 20 years now, so we're a little bit selective on what we can and can't do. So, if we plan a little bit better, we'd like to get over there once every 3 or 4 weeks, which will enable us to see, 6, 7, 8 games, depending on what we're doing on weekends. So we still have a good network of friends, and both our kids live in Melbourne, so we get over and see our daughter Charlotte a fair bit as well. So it's probably our second home, I think, at this stage. So, but we love Melbourne. We always have. We lived there for 17 years, and we've still got a lot of great friends and family over there. So we try and get over there as much as we possibly can, time permitting.
Before I let you go, Stephen, taking a specky or roosting one through for a goal on the run, What's your preferred?
Oh, Specky any day, I think. Yeah, it's. I look at Jeremy Howe these days, and to be honest, I don't know how he does it. He's amazing. It's I've always loved taking a grab. I wish I'd taken a few more, but if I had an option, there's nothing like getting on top of someone's shoulders and that ball just falling in your hands. It's a terrific feeling.
Well,
given our accuracy woes in front of goal, we probably need you kicking the goals rather than taking the marks at the moment. We could
What's going on? What do you guys think?
It's I don't know. People are starting to get angry though about constant misses from 20 out, or very slight angle. So
it's very difficult, isn't it? I guess it's one of those things that's. I don't think unless you're involved in the inner sanctum, it's really hard. It's there's obviously something's not right there. I don't think it's any one area that they need to work on. Obviously, goal kicking would help, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like they've got the balance right. They seem to have it right from time to time, and then things don't go to plan. So they've got all those surgeries they had pre-season, which probably play a little bit of a part in it. I think there were 15 players that had surgeries from memory.
Yeah.
That can't be good. And your top 5 or 6 players, some of those players have been out of form. It's just sort of snowballed a little bit. But, I think the list is good. I think the list is okay. Obviously they'll make some changes at the end of the year, but we've just got to have faith that Simon Goodwood and the coaches know what they're doing, and I'm sure they do. And hopefully we can get a couple of wins on the board in the next few weeks, and paint a good picture for next year.
Yeah, Stephen, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us tonight. It was a pleasure watching you play, taking speckies right in front of us in the red seats, dashing down the wing at the G and thumping through goals on the run from 50. You were a big part of the team that brought the Dees back in finals contention, and we're all following your son Billy on his journey, and hopefully he can get back on the park and help the current Dees in their hunt for September action in the future. Thank you very much, Stephen.
No worries, Annie. Thanks for having me, and thanks for all the support. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you. That was Stephen Stretch. Thank you to Stephen once again for joining Grapeviney and I. Grapeviney, what do you think of that interview?
Great. I thought it was superb. Look, all our interviews are good. Not our interviews, the interviewees. But it was great to get the insight from a parent's point of view.
Yeah.
And, look, as he said, it must be really hard, particularly, Billy's not automatic 22. As he said, he's probably around the fringes. Has had a rough trot with injuries over most of the journey. So, it'd be hard to sort of ride that emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, it would be. It is great to get that parent's perspective, and it was interesting that he said that Billy was very close to returning. I noticed the injury list, which we'll go over later, still says that he's 2 to 3 weeks away, which was the same as last week. And that injury list did appear to be updated today. I haven't seen the missing report this week. I'm not sure if it's out yet, but we'll keep an eye on that.
But look, he's been really unlucky because he would have, with all the other injuries we've had this year, absolutely we've needed him. So unfortunately he's missing what would be time in the firsts out again, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's no doubt, given the we've got a lack of players at the moment, he'd definitely be in the team at the moment if he was fit.
And it is true that he's been in good form. Most of his injuries have come at a time when he's just been sort of starting to show a bit. So, fingers crossed that he gets a good run at it. Yeah, agreed.
If you're listening to this show live and you'd like to join the conversation, give us a call, 0390163666. That's 0390163666. We'd love to hear from you guys as we talk about the Demons game in just a moment. You can also Skype us at Demonland31 if you're listening to the show live, but you don't want to call in, head over to demonland.com/podcast and you can join us in the chat room and you can ask the questions. We'll read comments on the air as well. Grapevine, once again, let me just start out by saying that we are our very own worst enemy. This was a game which was there to be won, and unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. As Whispering Jack made note of in his match report this week, we followed the 2019 red and blue print to the letter. Our inability to convert goals when going forward once again. First quarter was it's told the story 1-5 to 5-1. Each one of our shots for goal were clearly gettable. There was nothing difficult about those kicks. We have a propensity to leak goals to opponents who are then able to score with accuracy very quickly and accurately, which we can't seem to do. But a lot of the time, there's just insufficient pressure applied to them, and they can get goals easily. The in-game injuries that killed our rotations. We had, I think, at one stage 3 players off in that third quarter, so that really killed that rotation. Lack of rotations just caused us in the end to run out of gas, and again, as happened in the first game against the Eagles, they just ran over the top of us in the end.
Yeah, look, it was always going to be a tough proposition just with the forward line being what it is at the moment, makeshift. So I went in thinking again, I had a feeling we'd actually make a good go of it, but I did wonder where we're going to kick a winning score from. But look, I think you summed up the whole game in 30 seconds there.
Okay, good night. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, look, the fact is they did. They were kicking them from everywhere in the first. Kennedy, I think, got one around the corner from the boundary. Lewis missed his too, Viney, Petty, of course, and then some missed shots in the last quarter too. So what can you say when players are missing from 20, 25 out on a slight angle? Jordan Lewis, 2 shots in a row to get it right, at least for the second. And it's inexcusable.
And what killed me the most was BT, who usually I think is the biggest moron, actually summed it up beautifully. He kept saying, kick it to the left, to the left, to the left, to the left. We kept kicking it to the right, to the right, to right. Viney, as you mentioned, Lewis ×2, Petty ×2, Gawn, Fritsch. Kick 6 or 7 of those gimmies, and they were gimmies for AFL footballers, and we win easily despite the injuries, despite any bad umpiring. I think we win the game with those goals. And that's not to say the opposition don't miss some ones they kick, but again, as you said, I think they seem to kick the hard ones as well. And the easy ones, they just put straight through the middle.
I'd love to know our cumulative sort of score for the year in terms of goals and behinds, because it's been absolutely out of whack all season, whereas I think, in the previous few years, we've actually been pretty accurate in front of goal. A lot of those goals out the back we were getting last year, and also getting the ball sort of front and square and having shots from straight in front, which we were taking last year. We seem to miss them with incredible regularity this year. You can almost sort of bank on it. So, I sit there. I don't mark any down as certainties these days. Just can't trust any of them.
I mean, we won the disposal count, contested possession, hit-outs, clearances, tackles, shots on goal. We lost the free kick count, of course, the battle for accuracy in front of goal. Speaking of those free kicks, first quarter was a debacle, 9 frees to 1 in favour of the Eagles, and admittedly, many were there. I won't say we lost the game because of the umpiring, but some of the decisions or non-decisions are just baffling.
Yeah, I thought it was more a case of us not getting 1 or 2 that we probably should have got, but most of the decisions were there, unfortunately. We were clumsy and crude a bit early on, and I think it was more of an anomaly, that 9-0, rather than a series of sort of horrific decisions. There were some absolute howlers, of course, over the day, but I don't think that was sort of a main factor.
No, it wasn't. One of the things,
and it evened up basically.
It did.
Got close to even anyway.
It did. Where you talk about the ones we don't get, this happened when we played the Eagles last time. It just seemed that they were allowed to dispose of the ball anyway. But but we weren't. And that Max Gawn decision was just baffling for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. We're scratching our heads every week with the umpires, aren't we?
We are. I mean, look, from a Melbourne's perspective, obviously we see the game through one eye, but the other games that I do watch, and I admit I don't watch as many as I used to, particularly this year because I'm just a bit disheartened by our results to see any other teams playing well. But the ones that I do watch, there's some bad umpiring across the board.
Yep.
I must say that I was wrapped with our fight back from 30 points down. I will admit that I thought we were well on our way to an 80-point plus hiding, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. So the fact that we were able to fight back and get back into the game is a positive.
Yep.
Look, obviously it's disappointing that we could have put the game even further out of their reach, not let them come back, but. If we kicked accurately earlier, but to fight back from 30 points down to get in front is good signs.
It was some of our best footy, and I think Stephen Stretch had it right in his interview when he sort of said there are times where we look like we've got the balance and the tempo exactly right and it's back to normal, and then it just goes out of whack again. And I think that happened again on the weekend and has been happening all year.
Yeah, well...
There are sort of flashes of
but that's all it's
semblances of normality.
There's only been glimpses all year. We have not put 4 quarters together. We've barely put 3 quarters together, It's glimpses here or there, or a quarter here or there, or maybe two quarters in a row, but we just can't seem to put it to 4 quarters. And, yeah, that's the story of the year. I've been saying Bailey Fritsch. I've been saying this all year, and I was saying it last year. I think Bailey Fritsch is a forward. He must stay forward, particularly T-Mac and Weed are out, and even Melksham. But when they do return later in the year, obviously T-Mac's not, but Weed will, and maybe Melksham, maybe not. He has to stay up forward. He's proved he can take a mark and he can kick a goal. Keep him forward for you.
Yeah, but I think people are ignoring the fact that a large part of the reason he's been back is because half our backline was out for most of the year. So I know people have been
played as a back last year.
Yeah, but I thought his initial move up there was because someone got injured. Was it Hibberd?
Well, maybe because Hibberd had the quad last year. Lever was out.
Yeah, that's right. It might have been Lever that he went back after the Lever game. So, a large part of the reason he's been back there has been out of necessity. But look, everybody's been saying for a long time, get him forward, and we saw him back to his best again, which was good.
Our fourth quarter fitness, is it an indictment on the fitness staff? Is it a result of the in-game injuries? We had Viney, May and Petty off for chunks of the game, and, they were only able to rotate one off the bench. We just simply can't run out games. I think it was Lucifer's Hero on Demonland in the post-game thread who mentioned that we had 9 players who played more than 88% of game time, and West Coast only had 3.
Well, as you said before, there was a stage in the third where who was off? It was
Viney, May and Petty.
Viney.
And Petty had rolled his ankle.
Yeah, and that was for probably a good 20 minutes or 15, 20 minutes of the quarter. So that was a spanner in the works. And Viney didn't return, obviously. So, yeah. Look, I think we all know Misson's going at the end of the year. There's going to be a new fitness boss in. And Misson's done his time, and we'll get somebody new in.
I think they're to the cheers of at least half to 3/4 of people on Demonland. I think
none of whom know sport or sports science as much as Misson does, I must say. And look, fair enough to criticise him, but people are generally commenting from a position of no knowledge at all.
Yes, the move of Brayshaw on Yo, I thought was a good move. Both only ended up with 15 or 16 possessions each, but I think it was Brayshaw that negated Yo's effectiveness. We know Yo can be extremely damaging. He was damaging in the possessions he did get, so I thought that was a good move for getting Brayshaw back in the middle. Yeah,
good to see him back in the middle. And as you say, didn't get a lot of the footy, but keeping Yo quiet is important. So, yeah, good start.
What did you think of the decision to play Lewis up forward? Effectively, he was on McGovern. Obviously, had he kicked a couple of those easy misses, would be singing his praises even more. But there was a thread on Demon. There's been a thread on Demonland for a long time saying Lewis is cooked, never play him again. But a new thread popped up this week saying Lewis is not cooked. Give him an extra year. when you sit on that.
Well, that idea came up, I think, about halfway through the first quarter in the match day thread.
Yes.
So, as usual, Demonland is quick to jump on things. I noticed in the match day thread, by the way, someone calling for Clayton Oliver to be dropped. So you've always got to take what you read in there with a grain of salt.
Yes, people.
No, it's a no for me to Lewis. One good game does not an extra season make. And look, he was good on the weekend. Could have been better if he'd kicked the goals that he should have kicked. And was lucky to get that one called back because the one that hit the post in the second was was a miss kick, not a result of any bump that came that came during the kick. So it's a no for mine. He's finished. I think he knows he is, and I wouldn't be changing plans based on the weekend's performance.
Not even as a makeshift shift forward?
No. Not unless we're not planning on having any other forwards coming back. And no.
All right.
No.
All right.
I didn't even read the thread, to be honest.
I had a feeling you wouldn't, so we'll leave that one there. And
why? What are your thoughts?
No. I think I made it clear last week that I think he's done at the end of the year. But I'm happy for his service. I think he's been, some of the I won't say the leadership because he's at times displayed some unleadership-like qualities. But I think early on, particularly sort of teaching some of the kids there, being sort of that on-field sort of coach has helped us, but I think it's time to move on. I don't know whether he'll stick around as a coach. I don't know what he wants to do, whether it's media or coaching. I think happy for him to move on.
Yep.
Is Petty worth continuing up forward? We sung his praises last week. This week he only had 2 marks, 7 disposals, missed 2 very gettable goals that would have netted him 3 for the day, but he didn't really sort of trouble the stat sheet. Obviously,
look, sorry.
We're just without. We're not sure what's happening with Wiedemann. He's still listed as a test. I haven't heard anything from the club saying he's going to be back this week. Obviously, T-Mac's not in, so if Wiedemann's not back, he has to stay up forward. But didn't light the world on fire this week with his contributions.
No, and I sounded a note of caution at all the enthusiasm last week, even though he did play a good game. But yeah, it was just one game. So, his first game up forward, there's some promising signs, but yeah, need to see a body of work. Look, he's probably going to stay there, as you say, because we need him, and absolutely push on.
Talking about other experiments, is the Preuss experiment over? I was very bullish about Preuss. You heard it many times on here. I've said many times on these very podcasts that I couldn't understand why the footy department weren't giving him a go. But when Preuss dropped that absolute sitter with no pressure in front of goal, I felt like Goodwin personally screamed out, "Aha! Stick that in your pipe and smoke it, Demonland," just directly to me.
You're not the Lone Ranger. Most of Demonland, the board wanted Preuss in for most of the year. So, what was worse though? Was it the drop mark, or was it the tackle that wasn't in the first quarter?
You got to kick. Look, we got a goal straight away, but still,
Look,
you can't drop that.
It was funny because people have been saying, "Oh, yeah, well, at the very least he can throw his weight around and kick some heads," and yet he had a chance to lay a good tackle and let, I can't remember, it might have been McGovern, go. But yeah, not a good game on the weekend, and it's again probably keeps his spot because we need him up forward. But I don't know.
I'd still like them to persist with him.
He's still a work in progress.
He is. I'd still like them to persist. Look, the year's done. It's cooked for us. I'd still like them to persist with him in the runs for the remainder of the year. I'm not sure whether they will, because I think it depends on if Wiedemann is back this week. I reckon he's gone. I'd like to see them persist, please, just maybe out of my own stubbornness, and I would understand completely if he gets relegated back to the twos to work on his ruck craft.
Yep.
But that was awful. Really was, and I really want him to succeed. I really, really do. Jeddah and Lever were better for the run. Lever had a couple of nightmare kicks at one point, but I was very happy with some of his intercept marking. He'll play the rest of the year, just find himself, and then hopefully he can hit the ground running, and Jeddah too for next year.
Yeah, and the whole back line, let's get them having a good chunk of games here up at the end of the season, and be ready to rock and roll for round one next year. Cohesive and gel together, and
Stephen May is an absolute beast. He's exactly what we needed when coming up against teams like West Coast who have monster forwards. That's why we got him into the team, and I'm happy. I think that decision's been vindicated, and I love Stephen May. Not a shame to say.
I'm liking May, Frost, and Lever.
Yep,
it's going to work well, it seems.
Yeah, Frosty didn't have a great game this week. I think Darling usually has the better of him.
Darling's having a good year.
Yeah, so one game.
You're right. Yep.
One game doesn't. You don't throw him out of the team for that. So, our skills let us down once again. Two efforts in particular cost us with goals resulting from missed kicks into the corridor. One by Wagner, one by Fritsch. We had players on, we could have scored from them, and it's not really a 2-goal turnaround, but those mistakes,
harsh to single out those two. They were sort of at, they're the ones that stand out.
That's why I backed them up.
Fritsch particularly is forgivable though, because I think that's fatigue.
Yeah,
and you miss that by a few yards, and bang, it's all over. But look, I actually thought both Wagners did all right.
Yeah, I was going to mention that next.
Both played reasonably good games, I thought.
Yeah, I see a lot of criticism online, not just on Demonland, but on social media of the Wagners. I thought they played their depth player roles well. We've talked a lot about that we've had to have a lot of depth players playing all at once, and that doesn't certainly help. But Josh had 21 possessions. I thought he played well across half back, despite the error I mentioned earlier. And Corey kicked 2 goals, so they've played their depth player roles well. I'm not sure either are in my best 22, but they're there because of necessity, and I thought they did all right this week.
Yeah, I actually think they've both gone all right over the time that they've been in the ones. I know Josh has been in and out for a few years now, but as you say, I reckon he goes all right when he's in. And Corey, for mine, has actually shown a bit in the few games that he's played this year. So, Yep, a pass mark from me. Absolutely.
It'd be remiss of us if we didn't mention how good Clary was. 34 possessions, 6 tackles, a goal on an angle that he threaded straight through with a drop punt. None of this kicking around the body nonsense. He's just one of those players that will kick a drop punt and straight through the middle from a very tight angle.
Sorry, it just cut out then.
I said how good was Clary? 34 possessions, 6 tackles, a goal. The angle was fantastic. He didn't kick it around his body. Just put it straight through the middle with a drop punt.
Yeah, beautiful kick. And I think he's got, he's now got 20 plus contested possessions in more games than every other Melbourne player combined. So
he's had 13 games with 20 plus contested possessions. Yep. All other Melbourne players combined have only amassed 12 games. So
that goes back to 1999, by the way. So pretty good numbers.
Yeah. He's an absolute beast. Did you say someone was calling for him to be dropped?
Yes.
Okay.
It was fairly early on in the game, but still inexcusable to say that. I won't mention the poster's name, but...
Well, maybe we should start naming and shaming. Although, maybe if we do that, people might drag up audio that I've said here.
Well, exactly, yeah. If you
about Preuss.
More than our fair share.
All right,
but
no
look,
naming.
Also the game day thread, lots of stuff gets said in there, and we probably all have said stuff that we'd take back. So it's the frustration of following, of just watching football, not just of following the Dees. I want players deported sometimes when they make mistakes, but you calm down and you move on. But yeah, Clary had a good game.
Yeah, lucky there's no thought police. Otherwise, I'd be dragged off with some of the thoughts I don't always put onto paper or onto the screen, text onto a screen. So, look, the game day threads are always very, emotional, particularly if we're not playing well. And, that's why we sort of let things sort of go during the game day threads and rain it all afterwards.
I must admit I don't go in there. Only if I'm watching on the couch or sometimes have a visit like I did on the weekend.
That's the only time I peruse the game day threads or even post myself is when I'm sitting on the couch. Like this week, I can't sit out the footy and sit on my phone. So I just can't do that. Anything in particular from the game you want brought up? I'm done with my notes on the game. Haven't named every player, but...
no, I think that covers it pretty well.
It was nice to see Liam Jarrah. I saw a couple of highlights that they just showed on TV. I didn't watch the game was live, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I didn't watch that, but I saw some highlights. But it was nice to see Liam Jarrah, who looks like he's been in quite a good paddock up there. But it was great to see him kick a goal, nice snap, and what could have been with him?
It's amazing the feeling that he sort of generates among the supporters and the members, isn't it? It's for someone who played so few games. And yet everybody talks about him in these sort of mythical tones. And really the only player, the only comparable player is Alan Jakovic, someone who also played so few games but left such a huge impression. Absolute star quality. We all remember particularly how exquisite his disposal and timing and grace was, and we're crying out for it at the moment. So, good to see him back playing footy. I think one of his brothers was playing for the opposition.
Yep.
So I don't know if there's any opportunity there to get another Jarrah. But, as you say, what could have been?
Yeah, I think I don't know the exact stats, but I think it was 30 games and 80-plus goals or something ridiculous like that. Could be completely wrong. But, it was just remarkable. The marks, there's a highlights video floating around on YouTube, so do yourself a favour and go watch it and relive that magic time of 2011 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I think one of my favourite highlights in a short career that was full of them, there's a pass into forward 50 from about half forward where Melbourne players surrounded on all sides by about 6 St Kilda defenders, and the kick has to be absolutely pinpoint, precise, perfect, and it just drops in between all of them right onto the chest of the Melbourne player. And and you look at the current crop who can't hit the side of a barn. It makes you very nostalgic for the Lyon days.
Yes, it does. I'm going to play some audio, a couple of minutes of audio, so sit back and have a listen to this. Oh. Have a little bit of an ad.
The fear for me is that there is this belief at Melbourne that it is all of a sudden going to magically just all change next season, Roosie, and it's just going to all happen. And if they don't learn from what has happened this year, then all of a sudden we're going to be here next year in exactly the same position.
Yeah, I think that's why the next 5 weeks is so critical. It's what you want to see. I love Brayshaw going back in the midfield, even if it's a tagging role on Elliott Yeo. I think if I'm a Melbourne fan, I'm looking at next year, which clearly you are. I want to see some consistency in the last 5 weeks. I want to see a really solid defence. I don't want to see this reckless ball movement. I think they've really started to control that, which is great. But it's the 5 weeks for me leading into the pre-season. What's our brand? What's our game style? For me, it's now no longer about whether we win or lose, because there's some really good signs on the weekend, but just a real consistent game style. Players in, like Bailey Fritsch started mid, he's been back, he's been forward. Where's he going to play? Let's play him in a position. Let's make sure he gives himself a chance. They're forward now, that's fine. That's what I'm looking for if I'm a Melbourne supporter.
We'll let him off the hook too easy this year, Gaz. We'll let him off the hook too. Yeah. It's been unbelievable. 4th to 17th on the ladder. You got to get it off the chest, Gaz. What's your opinion though? Of what's really gone wrong?
Well, I don't think that's going to appease the Melbourne supporters. I know that's the good positive slant, and the rational would look at it. I've thought about it long and hard, and the only conclusion I'd come to is that last year is an aberration. And that's the outrider. That last year was an aberration, and they're nowhere near as good as what the results would indicate last year.
But they were building to last year, weren't they?
Yeah, but when you look at where they've been and the footy club as a whole, this is an outlier, Brownie. I mean, this is 5th on the ladder last year. They're back where they have been, not comfortable being, but where they've been for 12 years. So you have to look at the 1 year in isolation as an outlier, an aberration. It's not the norm for this footy club. So we all fell in. All the optimism of last year, I fell in. We all fell in. We fell in at the halfway mark of the year, Jared, like you just said. I think the buyers come at the right time. They're going to rattle home. It hasn't happened. Right now, they're 17th on the ladder. They're below Carlton. They beat Gold Coast by a point and Carlton by 5 points. It was an aberration.
I want to know how it can be an aberration, though, when you've got Gawn, Oliver, Viney, Brayshaw. Who else have you got? I've missed some midfielders there. Nathan Jones. Yep. That is an all-star midfield. That rates up there with the elite midfields in the competition, who have been out there for most of the year. Max scoring an all-Australian pace again. How can a midfield like that, their engine room, still put out a performance like they have this year?
So all of their scoring issues are at the bottom end of the competition, like the last in the competition. They're going inside 50.
Midfield contributes to that, though.
Well, that's right. And you just said that you just rolled them off, Brayshaw and Gawn, and so the great midfield can't help retain the footy once they go inside 50. I hate saying it. I hate saying it because we've all had this great optimism. But if we keep saying it's going to turn, it's going to turn, it's going to turn, we might be denying ourselves the reality, and that is they're not that good.
Coming into the season,
well, they should be a lot better, as Brownie said. And you add Lever and you add May. If the Demons aren't in the 8 next year, then there's going to be some serious pressure on Simon Goodwin. And the people at on the board and the people running the club. This has been a disastrous 12 months.
Agree.
Great Viney, disastrous 12 months. It's nothing new to us. Is Garry just angry like most of us on Demonland? Does he have a point? Do you think? Do you think it was an aberration?
No, and we've discussed this before, that, we sort of said we'll see next year whether 2018 was the aberration or this year was. And we don't know at this stage, and I thought Garry has really jumped the gun a bit on that. and I don't understand, and I've seen this on Demonland too, why people are using the 2007 to 2019 time frame. I mean, why not go back to 2003 or 1994? Like, do you know? Yes, we've been out of the finals for since 2006. But what's it got to do with the whole Bailey era? Surely we're judging the Roos / Goodwin period, so it's 2014 onwards. So Garry's saying, it's 1 year in 12. I don't accept that. It was sure it's 1 year in the 5, but in the 6, but we've had 5 years of linear growth, as has been noted, and this year we've fallen off the cliff. We'll know sometime next year, if all things being equal, exactly where we're at. We'll have a better idea where we're at anyway. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Goodwin if in 12 months' time we're sitting 14th on the ladder or 12th on the ladder even.
How long do you think they're going to give you, say, 12 months' time? Do you think panic will set in earlier? I know we're jumping the gun. There's a lot of time to go, a lot of things to happen in between now and then.
Look, it depends who else is either flying or falling next year. There's always stories that way, so we don't know who. But I know people on Demonland are saying they'll give him until round 10 or round 12 next year. Well, fat chance of that happening. Those people will be baying for blood in JLT 1 if we are trailing at quarter time. I was tempted actually to open up already the game day thread for that match, just so we could sort of start the campaigning to get rid of Goody. But look,
But forget whether it's the label of aberration. I think what he's saying is we're just not good. Forget whether something happened last year and was a fluke.
Yeah, I just don't know that I accept that. The fact is, if we'd had our kicking boots on in 3 or 4 games, we'd be 3 or 4 games better off than we are at the moment. We've literally kicked ourselves out of a few games. Now, bad kicking's bad football, so it's not an excuse, but. As has been said by some of the calmer heads on Demonland, nothing is ever as good as it seems and nothing is ever as bad as it seems. So, yes, we finished 4th last year, but there were still significant holes, either in the plan or the group or both. And some of those holes still remain. But, I don't think we are the 17th best team in the competition. I think we're better than that, and I'm expecting us to bounce back to a great extent next year. We'll see just how much when 2020 rolls around.
Yeah, look, I think injuries really have cost us this year. All year we've had a significant part of our team out or not available, so that it's got to add up to something, and then. The interrupted pre-season, we spoke about it a few weeks ago. Let's wait and see. Not ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
There are people calling for him to go now and saying that maybe he'll be gone by the end of the season. That's just nonsense talk. And I don't understand why Damien Hardwick and others get 6, Alan Richardson, how many years did he have at St Kilda without making finals? I don't know why other coaches get, multiple years to prove themselves. And people are like, well, Goody's had, 50 games now or something. And that's it. I mean, we made a preliminary final last year and we just missed the 8 the year before. So hold your horses. People are near hysterical at it, and I don't think we're at hysterical stage. And I'm glad the club isn't behaving hysterically.
No, they're not. Well, not yet. Anyway, let's watch this space, and we'll see what happens next year. I don't think I even need. I had this down as in the notes. Dermy calling us downhill skiers.
No. Look, some players need to run harder. There are various times in the game, and it's not always in the last quarter, where I see our mids jogging, and I wonder why. But, I don't think downhill skiing is our issue. And if it is, we've crashed into the tree at the bottom of the mountain, and, I don't think it'll be an issue going forward.
I didn't watch. I didn't see any of the Casey game. I had a look at the stats. There's nothing there to excite me in terms of anything. Noticed Tim Smith was back, had a goal and 14 disposals, 2 marks. Don't know whether that makes him an automatic in. It might, given we don't know what's happening with Wiedemann, and maybe he's in for Preuss this week. That's a possibility. Certainly there's nothing else on that stat sheet that I'm looking at now that instills me with any confidence of anyone coming in. We've been screaming out for a small, exciting small forward, and I look at the 2 guys who we've got on the list who are exciting in that category, Bedford and Chandler, and both of them have had 2 kicks. One's had 7 handballs, one's had 1 handball. It's 9 disposals and 3 disposals. So I think we've got to go hard and try to lure over or draft an exciting small forward.
Yep, no doubt. Absolutely need a crummer, big time.
Last week in the changes, we were talking about Jake Kennedy Harris. He just cannot get a game. As I noticed, he's had 20 disposals, kicked a goal. If he didn't get a game last week, I can't see them giving him a game this week.
Satty made an interesting post where he said maybe he's signed to go to Carlton and he's just seeing out the year in Casey, and it seemed to be too specific to be a hypothetical.
Oh, really?
So I don't know whether there was sort of substance to that and it was just a hint, but...
All right, I'll swap him for Cripps. Done. Where do we sign?
Binman saying that John Ralph says that Ed Langdon might be coming to the Dees.
Well, we've heard that. That's been the rumour. We've been front runners for him
forever
for quite a while. So bring him over. I don't want to give up. I don't want to be bent over a barrel about it. But let's not blinking. Let's get him to the club. Well, look, it's probably for us. It's going to be an interesting off season. We'll feature heavily, I would say, in the trade period. It'll be exciting for us.
But featuring heavily in in list changes is neither here nor there. I can't find the stats from last year, but there were stats. There were stats from the end of 2017 where. Carlton made the most list changes with 13. They obviously finished last year, or down the bottom. And West Coast made the second most with 12, and they won the premiership. So it's not necessarily an indicator of where you're at, the number of changes you make.
What are we seeing in the chat room has said rumours going around that we're chasing Patton. Makes perfect sense. We like injury-prone players at our club.
When was the last time he played?
I don't know, but bring him in.
Is he even playing anymore? I don't think I've heard his name.
No. I think we need to be chasing Cameron. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. All right. Any injury list? It's depressing. Nothing's changed from last week. I don't know if these are... The update says that it's the 23rd, which is today, but nothing changed in terms of... They changed
Maybe
the updated date.
Everyone's just sort of given up on the whole season.
They changed the updated date because this morning when I did the notes, it was last week, but the only thing that was added was Jack Viney added as a concussion, but with a TBC. So I'm not sure whether this is compiled by the AFL as a guess, or whether it's supplied by the club, which I doubt. But no one's time periods, including like Billy Stretch and Jake Milksham, Marty Hoare, are still at their 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 weeks And everyone else is still the same, either the old TBCs or seasons. And Sam Wiedemann's still a test, so yeah.
Interestingly, last week, I don't think the players did community visits as part of the Alice game, which they've done in the past.
I'm pretty sure Jeffy Garlett went up with the team and might have done something.
But I heard the team flew up Saturday morning.
Yeah, that's what I was under the understanding that that's what happened. So I don't know why.
I do know this. The CEO and a number of board members did camp out in St. Teresa as part of the trip. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure what St. Teresa is. That
it's just one of the communities in that neck of the woods. But yeah, we've got links with a few of the communities around there. So yeah. Anyway,
changes. Well, it depends. Viney, he's got concussion.
Yep.
Is that could be an automatic 1 week out?
Yep.
Then I guess it's just whether Wiedemann's back, whether Tim Smith comes in, whether Preuss goes out. Yeah.
Is it an automatic 1 week if you sit out the game? Although some people say it should be.
Well, I'm thinking more. I don't think there's a. I
think some people have called for that to be the case. That if you sit out the game, you sit out next week. But yeah, look, we'll wait to see on Viney. Does Tim Smith get a run? Because we need forwards, and he generally goes all right, apart from the fact that he'll then get injured and be out probably again.
Considering our forward line at the moment is just made up, is a makeshift forward line. You got Jordan Lewis in there, you got Preuss in there, you got Petty who's a backman, Fritsch has been playing back, and they're all playing forward. If there's a forward that is ready, a ready-made forward ready to go and isn't injured, then I think he probably does come in this week. Now,
you've just reminded me of something from the game, and this does relate to forwards. What did you think of Petracca not having a shot?
I was going to mention that.
What did you think of Hunt also not having a shot in the final quarter?
I don't like it because I've been saying it for a number of weeks. Players are too scared to have shots now. Petracca was on a very tight angle, and so was Oliver when he had his kick. Now Oliver just went back and kicked it. Petracca didn't, and I think
that's soft.
He should have.
He did.
Yeah,
just centering it to
he did.
Contest.
Look,
basically.
If he centered it to a guy who was by himself, fine. But he centered it to a 50-50 contest.
Just ridiculous.
Go back and have a kick. He'd be doing those at training and getting it maybe three out of 5 times.
And that shows you the confidence thing.
Yeah.
Here's a kid who has said he wants to be in the AFL Hall of Fame, who's too scared to take a shot and goal from 40.
Yeah.
Fair dinkum.
No, I didn't. I didn't. To answer your question, I hated it. I didn't like that one little bit. You got to go back and you want to be a champion and emulate some of your NBA heroes, who wouldn't. I don't know what wouldn't not take the three-point shot. I guess that's maybe an equivalent.
Exactly. And look, Hunt is a bit more forgivable because it was in play, so he was under pressure, whereas Track had time to think about his silly decision. But, too often our players are making the wrong call on that, and it's happened all year.
Yeah. Welcome to the chat room, Ethan Tremblay. I haven't seen you there for a while. He's saying to throw Hoare into the forward line when he comes back from injury. We'll try anyway.
Why not?
Why not? Let's try anything. All right, Grapevine, anything else before we wrap things up?
No, that's it for me, I think.
All right, well,
fingers crossed that we get a win at some point. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be. Well, look, I think I didn't play that part of the clip on the On the Couch segment, but they did mention about next week that if we don't beat St Kilda, It's not a good thing, and I think we do need to beat a team like the Saints. Now they've had their win after the coach change, so lucky for us, we're not getting them off fresh off a coach change. But teams that have sacked the coaches this year have been playing very well, so perhaps that's why Dean Milland is so bullish on getting. Seeing the back of Goodwin, maybe to get that bump of a few weeks wins, but that's not the case. We know because this thread's been going on for a while.
Yep.
All right. Well, Grapevine, thank you for joining me once again. I know you're off for the next couple of weeks, work-related way. So the next 2 weeks, we see the return of Super Mikado back to the airways. He's going to join me to discuss, a win or a loss against the Saints. Have a good few weeks, Grapevine, and come back refreshed, ready for our non-finals appearances.
Go Dees.
Go Dees.